It was known throughout the capital that the crown prince's grand tutor, Alaric, had a woman he cherished above all else. Her name was Rosalie. Her every smile and glance could make him lay down his life. But the emperor decreed our marriage, and I became his wife. On our wedding day, a woman in a red wedding dress appeared in the main hall. Alaric loves me the most. He said it was his greatest regret that he couldn't marry me. Now, I suppose I have married him. Her face was full of triumph, but I calmly lifted my veil and nodded to the people below. In an instant, 2 groups of thugs rushed in, dividing into 2 teams. They restrained both of them, forcing their heads down, and made them bow to each other. Since it was such a great regret, I would help them fulfill it. Just as we were about to perform the wedding ceremony, a woman in a red wedding dress burst into the hall. Her beautiful face was filled with triumph. Alaric loves me the most. He said it was his greatest regret that he couldn't marry me now. I suppose I have married him. Oh, this was Rosalie, the woman everyone in the capital knew Alaric cherished. The guests below murmured among themselves. Among them were many of the capital's noble families. Yet not a single one came forward to stop her. Wasn't it because of the Shen family's status? The Shen family had served as officials for 3 generations. The current Alaric was the crown prince's grand tutor. He was not to be trifled with. Even though I was married by imperial decree, in their eyes I was just an empty shell. Compared to Alaric's beloved, she was ultimately more important. Continue. Alaric's deep voice came from beside me. The scattered murmurs of the crowd suddenly ceased. I lifted my veil. Alaric looked at me with a cold, indifferent expression. Then, when he looked at Rosalie, his eyes filled with a gentle warmth. He was comfortable, but I was not. It was not a day for violence. I nodded to the people below. In an instant, 2 groups of thugs rushed in, dividing into 2 teams. The male thugs restrained Alaric. The female thugs restrained Rosalie. They pushed the 2 together and forced their heads down. I looked at the master of ceremonies. "What are you waiting for? Say the words." The master of ceremonies trembled. "First bow to heaven and earth, second bow to the parents, husband and wife bow to each other. The ceremony is complete." Since it was such a great regret, I would help them. I walked over to the 2 of them with a smile, looking at the 2 before me, one with eyes full of hatred, the other as if she hadn't yet reacted. But I raised my hand and slapped each of them across the face. In the end, I couldn't hold back. Only then did Alaric come to his senses. He tried to struggle, but he was no match for the burly thugs. He could only roar in helpless rage without a trace of his usual civility. "Adelaide, how dare you? This is a marriage decreed by the emperor. What is the meaning of this?" I sneered, rubbing my stinging hand. "I've just saved your Shen family, and you are still not satisfied." Alaric was stunned. I continued. "The emperor decreed the marriage, yet you allow your mistress to come to the door. If this reaches the emperor's ears, do you still want to be an official?" But Alaric didn't buy it, his face red with anger. "Even so, you shouldn't have humiliated us like this." I twisted my sore wrist and smiled. "Oh, but this is for your reputation. If word gets out, it might even appease the emperor a little. Besides, haven't I just fulfilled your greatest regret? You should be thanking me." I signaled for the thugs to retreat. Rosalie collapsed to the ground, her hair disheveled, the handprint on her face clearly visible. She burst into tears. "Alaric, Alaric." Alaric held her in his arms with great pity. I threw off my veil and flung it to the ground. "Clean up your mess. Don't think that just because the emperor decreed our marriage, I have to be grateful. I, Adelaide, will not stand for this." That day, I returned to the crew residence. Me father, upon hearing the news, was so angry his mustache quivered. What a Shen family! My daughter was already wronged, and now they dare to bully her. My mother was even angrier, slapping my father. "It is all your fault. For accepting this marriage, now my daughter is being bullied to death. Thank goodness my daughter is so clever." I sat at the table, eating grapes one by one, but my mind was on what had just happened. Alaric must have made some promise in the heat of the moment, and Rosalie had taken him seriously. But he wasn't angry. He was even using this opportunity to test my limits, to see how much I could tolerate. The Shen family, after 3 generations, could not break off a marriage. But even a noble family has its moments of weakness. And now, in Alaric's generation, they were not as powerful as before. My mother's family had been royal merchants for 3 generations. With a considerable fortune, my dowry was, of course. It was the Shen family who, using the fact that they had saved my life as a child, had asked the emperor to decree our marriage. The Shen family prided themselves on being scholars and artists. But deep down, they looked down on me, with my half-merchant, half-military blood. But they had miscalculated. I, Adelaide, was never a gentle and quiet noblewoman like those from the great families. Nor would I be easily manipulated and bullied. From the age of 5, I had traveled with my mother to the desert, to the Gobi. I had seen much of the world's complexities from a young age. My father was a military man, and I had trained with him in the army for many years. Having seen the vastness of the world, I had no interest in Alaric. If it weren't for the emperor's decree, I would never have married him. The current situation was something the Shen family had never expected. They must be in chaos right now. When I left the Shen residence, I had secretly left a few maids behind. Now they had quietly returned to the crew residence with the people from the Shen family. The people from the Shen family were waiting at the door. The maids eagerly came to report to me. After I left the Shen residence, it was in chaos. The guests were chattering, and Rosalie's sobs were incessant. Alaric had just watched coldly, holding Rosalie in his arms, but he too had eventually become annoyed by her crying. At the critical moment, the old Mrs. Shen, who had long since become a Buddhist nun, had come out to take control. First, she had settled the guests at their tables. Then she had ordered Alaric to come and bring me back. Alaric, of course, had refused, feeling that going back and forth would be a loss of face. The old Mrs. Shen had raised her cane and struck him. "Do you want the Shen family to survive?" Then she had used Rosalie to threaten him. "Even if you don't care about anything else, you should think of your beloved. Her reputation is ruined now." Only then had Alaric reluctantly come to the crew residence. But he didn't knock, nor did he announce himself. He just stood at the door. Rosalie was also by his side. Was he waiting for me to come out, full of gratitude, grateful that he had given me a way out? Hilarious. The world was always like this. They always thought that women were weak and should depend on men. They always felt that the Shen family, with their 3 generations of officials, was noble, and my crew family was vulgar. Since he couldn't bring himself to beg me to come back, I ignored him. But I was also intrigued. I ordered the servants to open the gates, brought out a chair, and sat inside, eating fruit and watching them. My father couldn't stand it. He pointed at the door and said, alluding to them, "People need to have some self-awareness. Don't always be thinking of good things without considering if you can handle them. This world is so strange. The one who is in the wrong has to wait for the other person to beg them before they'll admit their mistake." How interesting. My mother promptly brought my father a cup of tea. "Have some tea to soothe your throat." My father drank it in one gulp and continued to lecture the people at the door. But Alaric, at the door, his face flushed, still didn't move. At that moment, the old Mrs. Shen arrived at the gate. She struck Alaric with her cane and said to my father apologetically, "General Crew, you are a man of great magnanimity. Please forgive my grandson." With that, she continued to hit Alaric with her cane, muttering, "You scoundrel, you are the Crown Prince's grand tutor. The Emperor values you and has decreed your marriage. How could you do such a thing? Look at this child kneeling here in apology. His knees are all swollen." This old lady was interesting. In a few words, she had mentioned her Shen family status, and also warned me not to make a scene anymore. The Emperor had decreed the marriage. If this continued, it would be my fault. Alaric also lowered his head, his former pride gone. "My lady, I was wrong. I will not let you be wronged in the future." As for Rosalie, I only see her as a sister. She was being childish and offended you. I have already sent someone to personally teach her, so you can rest assured. I took a sip of my tea. I had to go and meet these wolves. Old Mrs. Shen, you know that my marriage with Alaric was decreed by the Emperor. So, knowing this, you still allowed Rosalie to get through the layers of guards. It seems your Shen family's guards are not very good. In that case, I will bring my crew family's guards with me, for extra security. I turned my head and looked at the haggard, looking Alaric. Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? You said you had someone to teach her. In that case, my crew family's nanny Tian was formerly from the palace. I will send her to teach Rosalie. The old Mrs. Shen looked troubled, but she couldn't refuse. She just smiled, afraid that if I was unhappy, I wouldn't go back, and things would be difficult. Rosalie, on the side, was full of terror, but because of the old Mrs. Shen's presence, she could only look at Alaric with a wronged expression, looking truly pitiful. But I just smiled and looked at her. Rosalie, in the future, you must learn the rules from Nanny Tian. You are Alaric's sworn sister, which makes you my sister. I will certainly treat you well. With that, I clapped my hands. Alaric beside me jumped. Look, he has even scared the child. Oh, isn't this a perfect ending? Let's go, back to the Shen residence. And turn it upside down. This farce finally came, but during the banquet, the guests after a few drinks started to gossip. Married twice in one day, this Mr. Shen is a lucky man. What do you know? One at home, one outside. The old Mrs. Shen personally came forward to explain. That time doesn't count. My Shen family only has one matriarch, Adelaide. Alaric had long ago recognized Rosalie as his sister. Rosalie was just going through the motions for her new sister, in-law. I sat in my room, eating pastries, listening to the maid's reports. I just found it laughable. The Shen family wasn't embarrassed enough. As for the rest, I didn't care after all. My reputation had already spread throughout the capital. What I cared about was that no one should try to bully me, much less try to step on me to get ahead. Absolutely not. After the banquet, Alaric arrived late. He came in wrapped up tightly, as if I were some kind of monster. We were married by imperial decree. In the future, let's just live together as partners. If you want my affection, then I can only advise you to give up that idea. As he said this, I was eating a pastry. I was so startled that I almost choked. I just found it laughable. How did Alaric become the Crown Prince's grand tutor? With a head full of love. I took off my hairpins and threw a blanket on the floor. You sleep here. Move it to the door, far away from me. But Alaric didn't care. He hugged the blanket and rolled to the door. He was probably glad to have saved his own purity. The next day before dawn, the maids at the door were shouting, "Please come to the front hall to serve tea to the elders." I opened my groggy eyes. I hadn't slept well last night. Perhaps the Shen residence was not good for me. Or perhaps Alaric's presence in the room had polluted the air. "Please, my lady." Ah. The maid outside was about to shout again when a cry of pain came. The Shen family's rules are so strict, making the new bride serve tea before dawn. You won't find another family like this in the whole capital. Even the Empress in the palace has never been treated like this. Is your old lady more noble than the Empress Dowager? I chuckled softly. This was my handmaiden, Beatrice. She had been with me since she was a child and had developed a feisty personality. With her around, I felt much more at ease. The maid outside seemed to want to say more, but Beatrice refuted her every word. The argument was loud. Alaric on the floor slowly woke up. What is going on outside? I threw a soft pillow from the bed. It landed right on him. I sneered. Your good mother, who hasn't seen you in over 20 years, is waiting for you to serve her tea so she can have a good look at you. Alaric was a little angry. You have no manners at all. She is your mother-in-law. I looked him up and down and laughed. Then I should go and serve her tea properly. With that, I got dressed up. I was ready to go to my good mother, in-law's courtyard. I wanted to see who would be in charge in this residence from now on. When I went out, the maids and servants were all kneeling on the ground. Beatrice walked to my side. "My lady, they're all a bunch of backstabbers." I nodded and smiled. Oh, what loyal people. But I will only say this once today. I, Adelaide, am now the matriarch of the Shen residence. The food and clothing of the Shen residence all come from me. Everyone should keep their eyes open. Don't make a mistake that you'll regret for the rest of your life. The crowd on the ground trembled and repeatedly agreed. Just then, Alaric, dressed, came out. He frowned, his face full of disgust. "Adelaide, are you going to turn the residence upside down on your first day? These are all old servants of the residence. Don't be so aggressive." I walked around him, pretending to be surprised. "Ah, but the residence is now using my money. I can't even say a word. Even if you complain to the emperor, you won't be in the right. Besides, they were incompetent. They couldn't even stop a little girl from entering the matriarch's courtyard. I can't say anything." Alaric was speechless, his face full of shame. "Let's go. Mother is still waiting." His voice was very low. After he finished speaking, he walked out of the courtyard. Looking at his back, I had a rebellious thought. With him like this, how did he become the Crown Prince's grand tutor? Just as I stepped into his mother's courtyard, Beatrice, who had come from behind, whispered a few words in my ear. I sneered. This Shen family was truly shameless. As soon as I entered, my mother-in-law was clutching her heart, looking heartbroken. Oh, I thought I was getting a well-mannered daughter-in-law, but I never thought. Oh, I took a cup of tea from the table and handed it to her. My mother-in-law was shocked. "I haven't even asked you to serve tea yet. What are you doing? How improper." I accidentally spilled the tea, and it splashed all over my mother-in-law. I quickly apologized. "Oh, mother-in-law, I was too hasty. I thought you would die of thirst if you didn't drink my tea. That is why I took the liberty of serving it." My mother-in-law was furious. You, I thoughtfully patted her on the back. "Mother-in-law, don't be so agitated." Just then, Alaric stepped in. "Adelaide, what did you do to my mother?" I looked up, my face full of innocence. "My husband, you are wronging me. I was just serving tea to my mother-in-law." At that moment, my mother-in-law, seeing Alaric, perked up. She gave a look to the nanny beside her. "Alaric, your wife is not a chaste woman." The nanny brought out a white silk cloth. It was the one that had been placed on the bed last night, treeing to deal with me. Not a chance. Beatrice had told me about this before I came in. I never thought this Shen family, who prided themselves on being a family of scholars, would be so shameless. I took the initiative and glanced at the cloth, then chuckled softly. "Mother-in-law, as a woman, you should know best how strict this society is about a woman's chastity. Last night, Alaric and I did not sleep in the same bed. Have you ever seen a woman who can do such a thing by herself? And a woman's chastity should not be judged by what is under her skirt. Your actions are truly unworthy of a family of scholars." My mother-in-law's face was grim. Alaric pointed a finger at me, his face full of anger. "Adelaide." He probably thought that if his voice was loud, he would be right. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of Crew family guards came in from outside and surrounded Alaric. Alaric and his mother were frightened by this. They couldn't say a single word, but I was laughing happily. "My husband, my mother, you should be careful what you say and do in the future. These guards are loyal to their master. If they accidentally hurt someone, it would be a pity." The mother and son were speechless. I flicked my sleeves and left. After this, the wind in the residence must have turned. Right? In the past, at the Crew residence, I was never a daughter who was raised in the boudoir. Me parents were open-minded and raised me to be independent. If it were anyone else, they would have been eaten alive by this Shen family. Now, in the Shen residence, I would never live a life confined to the inner courtyard, relying on my husband's favor. I would take good care of the dowry that came with me. The current Shen family is like a pack of hungry wolves. I married into the Shen family because of the Emperor's decree. But now that I am married into the Shen family, my mission is complete. I have no scruples about what I do next. After that day, the direction of the wind in the residence completely changed. Walking in the courtyard, the maids and servants were all very respectful. "Good day, mistress." "Look at that. They really thought I was a pushover before, but I was in a good mood today." I immediately gave some gold beans to the sweet-talking maids. The maids were grateful, and, like a weather vane, immediately turned to my side. But someone had to ruin my good mood. At night, Alaric returned to the room, covered in dust. As soon as he entered, he informed me, "Take out a part of your dowry. My father needs it urgently. Of course, it is just a loan. It will be returned soon." I laughed. I threw my chopsticks on the table. "What? The great Shen residence is now going to use the new bride's dowry? If word gets out, it will surely tarnish your Shen family's reputation." Alaric frowned. "If you don't say anything, and I don't say anything, how will others know? And you are already a member of the Shen family. You must understand the principle of shared honor and disgrace." I glanced at him. "What is this money for?" Alaric raised an eyebrow thinking he had a chance, and stood up from his chair. He cleared his throat. "It is just for some business." I raised an eyebrow thinking I had misheard. A family of scholars is going into business. Didn't you all pride yourselves on being a family of scholars and look down on us merchants? And now you are borrowing money for business? I sneered, stood up, and patted my clothes. "You can have my dowry, but you have to write an IOU. Will you write it, or should I go find my father-in-law?" Alaric was furious. "We're a family. Why do we need an IOU?" I sighed. "Then if I accidentally let it slip in the future?" His face flushed, but in the end, he agreed. "Adelaide, you must keep your word. Don't let this get out. My Shen family is a family of scholars." Oh, a family of scholars indeed. After Alaric signed the IOU, he went away. I instructed Beatrice to keep the IOU safe. Beatrice looked worried. "My lady, are we going too far? The Shen family is a family of scholars. They wouldn't refuse to repay a debt, would they?" I shook my head at her. "Silly girl. You don't understand these people. Their mouths are full of scholarly airs, but they're rotten on the inside. They look down on our crew family, thinking we're just merchants, not worthy of their noble, scholarly family. But aren't they shamelessly asking us for money? Who knows? This money might just be a waste, but we have a lot of money. We can just use it to watch the Shen family make a fool of themselves." Beatrice nodded, as if she understood. After Alaric signed the IOU on behalf of his father, he personally went to the storeroom to count the money. Boxes and boxes of money were carried to the front yard. This glamorous Shen residence was about to change. After I had counted my dowry and figured out the ways of the Shen residence, as I was walking along a path in the courtyard, I suddenly heard a cry of pain. Only then did I remember that Alaric's sister Rosalie was living in the other courtyard. I walked towards the courtyard. Through the gaps in the leaves of the trees in the courtyard, I saw Rosalie, who was crying out in pain inside the room. At this moment, she was being personally taught etiquette by Nanny Tian. When you bow, your body must be low. You cannot be presumptuous in front of your master. You cannot look up. You cannot look directly at your master. Following this were the sounds of a ruler and Rosalie's cries of pain. I quietly left and instructed Beatrice to add a gold ingot to Nanny Tian's monthly salary. She was meticulous and responsible. She deserved a reward, since Nanny Tian was now doing her best. I should see the results. That evening, I gave orders to hold a banquet the next day to celebrate for Rosalie. After all, she had become Alaric's sworn sister, and no banquet had been held for her yet. The whole capital should know. In the evening, I told Alaric about this. His face was ashen, and he didn't say a word. I continued to add fuel to the fire. Rosalie's reputation has already hit rock bottom. How will she get married in the future? Alaric must have genuinely liked her, for in the end, he agreed. At tomorrow's banquet, Rosalie must shine. I agreed. Of course. Beatrice had privately found out that in the past, when the Shen family attended banquets of the capital's high officials, Rosalie would always be by Alaric's side. She was always dressed to the nines and valued her appearance the most. In that case, I intentionally bought Rosalie some new clothes and jewelry, and they were all the most precious. Beatrice personally delivered them to the other courtyard. Rosalie, like the rest of the Shen family, prided herself on being above material things. But when she saw the magnificent jewelry, she could no longer suppress the desire in her heart. When Beatrice came back and told me this, I was balancing the books. Hearing this, I sneered. Let her be happy for a few days. After tomorrow, she won't be smiling anymore. The Shen family's reputation was still good. Many noble families from the capital came. I was dressed in a passionate red, and the jewelry in my hair was, of course, a gift from my mother before I was married. Understated and expensive, the star of the banquet arrived. Rosalie was wearing the clothes and jewelry I had sent her yesterday. She walked in gracefully. Alaric was immediately stunned. Of course, Alaric had always liked Rosalie's type, pitiful and easily arousing his protective instincts. When Alaric passed by me, he looked disgusted. Today's star is Rosalie. Why are you so flamboyant? Didn't you promise me that you would make Rosalie shine? Hilarious. I glanced at him, unconcerned. I've always been like this. It is not the first day you've known me. As we were talking, the conversation of the ladies nearby drifted over. Rosalie's dress is made of flowing light brocade worth a fortune. Yes, and the color suits her so well. And that jewelry, it is so brilliant, you can't take your eyes off it. Alaric, of course, heard it. He looked ashamed. My lady, you have put a lot of thought into this. I was wrong to blame you. I ignored him, walked past him, and went towards the ladies. I mingled among the noblewomen. I talked freely. Like a fish in water, the ladies all changed their opinion of me. After all, my homework was not in vain. I knew what these noblewomen liked and disliked. Before the banquet began, I had Alaric bring Rosalie over. I introduced her to the crowd. Everyone, this is my husband's sworn sister. From now on, she will be the second young lady of the Shen residence. Rosalie bowed to everyone. Her etiquette was perfect, her demeanor graceful. She won the praise of everyone. This also gave Rosalie great satisfaction. Thank you, sister-in-law. Rosalie looked triumphant. She should know. The pain she suffered while learning etiquette was for her own good. The honor she received today was given by me. But she was still not satisfied. While I was away from my seat, Beatrice told me to go to the courtyard. Before I even got close, I heard a discussion. Rosalie, your sister-in-law, is not bad. It is better than being Alaric's secret mistress. Yes, look at your jewelry and clothes, how valuable they are. Besides, you saved Alaric's life, but you still couldn't enter the residence, right? I think your sister-in-law is better. Rosalie's few close friends were genuinely looking out for her, but she didn't appreciate it. Why can she be the official wife, and I can only be some kind of sister? And I saved Alaric's life. I am not willing. I waved my hand, no longer wanting to listen. I adjusted my hair and returned to my seat. Rosalie arrived late. Alaric seemed to be drunk. He pulled Rosalie to his side. His face was gentle. Rosalie, you must be good in the future. The Shen residence is your home. With that, he had a servant bring out the gift he had prepared in advance, a gemstone hairpin. He personally put it in her hair. This caused a stir among the guests. Mr. Shen and his sister are really close. But Rosalie was not satisfied. She looked at me provocatively, but I ignored her and continued to entertain the guests. But she actually turned her anger on me. Does sister-in-law also treat me as family? The guests all looked on as if they were watching a good show. I smiled. Of course, Rosalie, sister-in-law has prepared a great gift for you today. With that, I had Beatrice bring in 3 people from outside. A couple and their son. It had taken me a lot of effort to find them, and I had given them a large sum of money. Rosalie, it took me a lot of effort to find your family for you. Rosalie, quick, call them. This is your mother and father and your brother. Don't worry, even if you acknowledge your biological parents, the Shen residence will always be your home. At this moment, Rosalie's face was pale. A gambling, addicted father, a lecherous brother, and a biased mother. Rosalie was in for a good time. Alaric immediately shielded Rosalie behind him. Adelaide, what are you doing? The Shen residence is Rosalie's home. I frowned. My husband, I privately found out that Rosalie misses her biological parents very much. That is why I wanted to give her a surprise. You ask Rosalie, isn't that right? At this moment, Rosalie's face was already pale. She had mentioned finding her biological parents to Alaric with a pitiful expression. Because there were so many people here, she could only bite her lip and nod. But sister, in-law, how do you know they are my parents? Since she had acknowledged it, it was easy to handle. I immediately had Beatrice bring a bowl of clear water. A blood test is the most accurate. Everyone present nodded in agreement. But Rosalie was flustered. She hid behind Alaric. My husband, don't worry. Just one test, and we can find Rosalie's parents and fulfill her wish. If it is a happy occasion for everyone. If not, she is still the young lady of our Shen residence. Alaric turned his head and gently soothed Rosalie. Finally, Rosalie walked to the front. A drop of blood was drawn. The two drops of blood merged. The people in front of her were Rosalie's relatives. I smiled. Rosalie cried. Alaric looked relieved. Rosalie reluctantly acknowledged her parents. Alaric didn't realize the seriousness of the problem at all. He even looked relieved and happy that Rosalie had found her biological parents. He didn't notice the unwillingness on Rosalie's face at all. I hid my merits and fame and lived a few peaceful days. But Rosalie was very uncomfortable. Her biological parents came to the door every few days, either asking for money or threatening her. She was exhausted. Alaric had been very busy recently and didn't have time to deal with her. After all, his father's business seemed to be in some trouble. The materials purchased from the south could not be transported in due to the heavy rain. The shop was on the verge of a crisis. Alaric had been secretly helping his father, so he was overwhelmed. He had gone out to negotiate in disguise. If word reached the emperor, his career as the crown prince's grand tutor would be over. He was, of course, reluctant to give up his official position. I hadn't been idle either during this time. I had been carefully managing the shops my father had given me as part of my dowry. Alaric happened to see me handling my own shops with a natural ease. He couldn't help but see me in a new light. In the past, he had only seen me as a merchant's daughter and had never taken me seriously. Now, his opinion of me had changed. He had only read a few more books and had a better understanding of strategy, which was how he had become the crown prince's grand tutor. But he was terrible in other areas. Now, seeing me talk so eloquently, he was actually a little impressed. I never thought you would be so decisive. I was wrong about you before. I ignored him and continued to work on the books. After taking care of my own shops, in my spare time, I went to the Buddhist temple with my mother to offer incense. Afterwards, my mother was to stay in a meditation room in the backyard for a few days. I accompanied my mother and settled her in, but I never thought I would happen to see Alaric. He went to a meditation room. I remembered that the old Mrs. Shen was recuperating here. I felt that they were hiding something from me. Alaric, are you now completely under Adelaide's thumb? The old Mrs. Shen was like a venomous snake, her former kindness gone. Grandmother Adelaide is watertight. I have no way to get at her. And she is a good hand. Isn't it good to have her make money for our Shen family? The old Mrs. Shen's tone suddenly rose. Are you developing feelings for her? Don't forget, your father can't wait. How much more money do you expect her to give you? Alaric sighed. Grandmother, I understand. Outside the door, I sneered. It seems the Shen family isn't in a hurry to fall. In that case, I'll give them a push. After returning to the Shen residence, Alaric's sudden concern made me very uncomfortable. You must be tired from looking at the books. How about some lotus seed soup? I had the kitchen make it for you specially. I looked up at Alaric. I don't like it. At that, he looked a little unnatural, then said, Then, what do you like? I'll have it prepared for you. I waved my hand and smiled. What? Have you had a change of heart? Didn't you tell me not to expect your love? Alaric suddenly became angry and threw the teacup on the table. Seeing this, I had no choice but to play along. I picked up the teacup and drank it in one gulp. How is that? Seeing this, Alaric regained his usual civility. Much better. I had Beatrice bring a bowl of chrysanthemum tea from the kitchen at just the right time. A gift for a gift. Drink this chrysanthemum tea. Your lips are chapped. Alaric touched his lips, looked at me, then picked up the chrysanthemum tea and drank it in one gulp. But he didn't know that money makes the world go round. The people in the kitchen had long been bought by me. The lotus seed soup was not poisonous. The chrysanthemum tea was. After all, I am the kind of person who returns an eye for an eye, and can't tolerate a single grain of sand. The Shen family's shop was in trouble. The people were protesting at the door, unable to deliver the goods on time. They were besieged by the people. The matter was now completely out of hand. The boss behind the shop was also uncovered. It was none other than the self-proclaimed scholar, Alaric's father. Now, the capital was in an uproar. In the court, officials all criticized Alaric's father. They said he was shameless. This matter naturally affected Alaric. After all, the Crown Prince's grand tutor could not have a flawed character. In an instant, the Shen residence was turned upside down. Alaric was demoted, and his father's shop owed a lot of money. Alaric, disregarding his own pain, came to me to borrow money for his father. I sipped my tea and looked at him with a casual air, seeing his anxiety. Borrowing money again, but you haven't repaid the 10,000 taels you borrowed before. In this situation, I don't dare to lend you any more. Alaric was so anxious he was scratching his head. But he didn't dare to shout at me again. My lady, just help me one more time. Just this once. In the future, I will definitely live a good life with you. But I just laughed. He had already tried to harm me and he still wanted me to help him. Truly shameless. I ignored him and had Beatrice drive him out. Just then, Rosalie came to the door. Seeing Rosalie again, I never thought she would be so haggard. Her face was pale, and she was no longer wearing her usual gorgeous clothes. Her biological parents must have been tormenting her. As soon as she opened her mouth, she accused me. Why didn't you give your dowry to Alaric? I laughed and stared at her. The dowry is mine. Why should I help him? Don't you know he has already borrowed 10,000 taels from me and it is all gone? Besides, in what capacity are you talking to me? Rosalie was speechless. Originally, she had entered the Shen residence because she had saved Alaric's life. She had relied on Alaric to get by. She must have saved up some money, but it had probably been extorted by her biological parents. She was doing this for herself. She wanted to use Alaric to get some money from me. But I had seen through her. She left in a huff. I just prepared some tea and watched the show, watching them fight like dogs. As I was sipping tea in the courtyard, Beatrice came to report to me. Something big has happened in the capital. Listening to Beatrice's report, I smiled slightly. The good show is about to begin. Alaric's father's matter had completely blown up. It turned out that Alaric had gone to borrow money from a loan shark, but he was recognized by the manager. He was taken to the government office. They said he couldn't repay the money and was trying to take advantage of them. The once civilized Alaric was now extremely dejected, his former glory gone. He had assured the manager that if he could see me, he would be able to repay the debt, and so a servant came to find me, begging me to go to the government office. I stood up, clapped my hands, and called Beatrice. Let's go watch a show. When I arrived at the government office, Alaric was kneeling on the ground, without a trace of his former glory. Seeing me, he was like seeing a savior. He crawled to my feet and clutched my skirt. My lady, save me. I looked down at him, then turned to the official at the head of the hall and bowed. I beg your honor to do justice and make the man on the ground. Alaric, repay his debt to me. Everyone present widened their eyes. Alaric was even more incredulous. Adelaide, we are husband and wife. You should be helping me solve this problem first. I ignored him and calmly stated my case to the official. Alaric borrowed 10,000 taels of silver from me some time ago, and has not repaid it. The IOU is here. I ask your honor to investigate. A yamen runner beside me took it. The official at the head of the hall was imposing. Alaric gritted his teeth. Your honor, this is a family matter. I don't think it is within your jurisdiction. It is indeed a family matter, but if the victim comes to complain, the government can intervene. Hearing this, Alaric collapsed to the ground. Adelaide, you are cruel. We are husband and wife. I turned my head and looked straight at him. I never wanted to take this step, but your Shen family has been too bullying. You even wanted to poison me to death and take my dowry. Do you dare to say you didn't know about this? As soon as I finished speaking, the crowd erupted in discussion. How could he be so cruel as to poison his own wife? This Mrs. Shen's family is very wealthy. How could she have married such a scoundrel? What a vicious family, and a family of scholars at that. Ha! Alaric was incredulous. I knelt down before the official. I beg your honor to investigate thoroughly and give this commoner justice. Alaric thought he had bribed the kitchen servants and that it was a foolproof plan. But he didn't know that money can make the world go round. I had originally thought he had some conscience, but I never thought his heart was so black. When the yamen runners brought the kitchen servants in, Alaric's face was already pale. He opened his mouth, but couldn't speak. After a long while, he murmured, "It shouldn't have been like this. I had no choice. But you wouldn't give me the money. How was my Shen family supposed to live?" His words were heard by the official at the head of the hall, and by the people around. In an instant, Alaric was pelted with vegetable leaves and rotten eggs. His face was so dirty it was unbearable to look at. He came to his senses and tried to grab my legs. A yamen runner saw this and pinned him to the ground. The official at the head of the hall banged his gavel. The matter of Alaric poisoning his wife is to be preserved as evidence, and he is to await trial. He was not able to leave the government office and was detained in the prison. The old Mrs. Shen finally couldn't sit still. This old lady with a Buddha's mouth and a snake's heart. She chanted sutras every day. I wonder if she was afraid. She tried to pull strings many times, but in the end, it was useless. The matter had reached the emperor. Alaric, as the former crown prince's grand tutor, had fallen to this state. The emperor, of course, wanted to hear and see for himself. In the Shen residence, the old Mrs. Shen leaned on her cane, her face full of hatred. "You venomous woman, that is your husband." She was about to strike me with her cane. The guards in the residence instantly surrounded her, separating her from me. "What good will it do you if your husband is gone? Damn you, Adelaide! May your whole family die a miserable death!" Hearing this, I stared at her and walked up to her. "Old lady, what goes around comes around. If anyone has harmed your grandson, it is you. Weren't you the one who gave him the idea to harm me and take my dowry? It is just what you deserve. Now it seems it is your whole family who will die a miserable death." The old Mrs. Shen's face was contorted with pain. She suddenly fell backwards. Rosalie caught her just in time. "Grandmother, we will find a way. We don't have to beg this venomous woman," I sneered. "I almost forgot about you. Aren't you ashamed to say that? Alaric was devoted to you, but you and your parents set him up to save him. You really played that life, saving card to the hilt." Rosalie's face turned pale. She had not expected that I would investigate her background. 5 years ago, Alaric had been riding his horse and had accidentally fallen off a cliff. It was all Rosalie's design. At that time, she was a stable maid. She had high ambitions and wanted to enter a wealthy family like the Shen residents. So she and her biological parents, who also worked at the stable, had set up this whole show. They had prepared everything in advance, just waiting for Alaric to fall into their trap. She had taken a lot of money from the Shen family over the years for her biological parents. Yet when I found them, they had greedily come forward to acknowledge her. To think that the Shen family had treated such a woman as an honored guest Even I, an outsider, found it laughable. The Shen family was in chaos when they learned the truth. Rosalie was kicked out of the Shen residence. The Shen family demanded back all the money and jewelry they had given her over the years. Otherwise, they would take her to court. The old Mrs. Shen fell ill and never recovered. The great Shen residence had lost its backbone. It was in a state of disarray. Alaric's verdict was also handed down. The evidence was irrefutable. The pharmacy apprentice and the kitchen cook all testified against him. Alaric was sentenced to be beheaded in the autumn. The Shen family was devastated when they heard the news. But, in the end, there was nothing they could do. Alaric had become a target. The emperor was watching him closely. There was no escape. The Shen residence had completely fallen. Only an empty shell remained. When I returned to the crew residence, my parents looked at me with pity. My daughter has suffered. But I was in high spirits. I had gotten rid of the burden of the Shen family. I could finally do what I loved. Naturally, after Alaric's death, my relationship with him was also dissolved. The day before Alaric's execution, I went to the prison. Alaric had lost all his former glory. Seeing me, he still had some illusions. My lady, save me in the future. I will only love you, okay? I looked at him with disgust. What about your Rosalie? He was taken aback for a moment, then said dryly, My lady, I have nothing to do with her. I only have you. It seems the Shen family had not told him the truth. Then I must be the good person. I told him the truth about how Rosalie had saved him. His lips trembled, his face full of disbelief. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. But I didn't want to waste my breath on him. I could only kindly inform him. Your beloved Rosalie has already gone to the brothel to live a life of luxury. And your parents are begging on the streets of the city. Your father's shop has gone bankrupt. He can't pay his debts. He has sold all his family's property, but it is still not enough. Oh, and by the way, your grandmother who doted on you the most is now lying in bed, crying every day. Alaric's eyes were bloodshot, his face contorted with rage. He finally exploded. Adelaide, you venomous woman! I brushed the dust from my shoulders. I am venomous? But if you don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. You all deserve it. Alaric was beheaded. His begging parents cried their eyes out, but they were driven out of the city by the guards. Rosalie lived a life of debauchery, and eventually fell ill. The madam threw her out onto the street to fend for herself. I was free. My dowry was also returned to the crew residence. The emperor did not say much. He just issued a decree for me and Alaric to divorce. Perhaps the emperor also felt that this marriage was not a good match from the beginning. I was not affected by Alaric's matter. Now, I just want to manage my parents' shops well. In my spare time, I will travel all over the country. From now on, only good days await.